The massive crystal dome floated in the endless darkness between stars, its walls shimmering with colors that human eyes could barely process. Inside this impossible structure, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to discuss the newest addition to their empire. The air itself seemed to hum with ancient authority and barely contained power. Ambassador Riley walked through corridors that defied physics, her simple human clothing a stark contrast to the elaborate forms surrounding her. The Altari moved, like living gemstones, their bodies catching and reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The Korval Empire representatives towered above everyone else, their metallic skin shifting through different colors as their emotions changed. Dozens of other species filled the halls, each one more alien and impressive than the last. 3 years had passed since humanity made first contact with the Galactic Council. 3 years since they learned that Earth was just one tiny world in, a vast empire that stretched across multiple star systems. The Council had been surprisingly welcoming, offering technology, protection, and membership in their ancient civilization. But there had been conditions. Riley entered the main chamber where the council held their meetings. The room was so large that clouds actually formed near the ceiling. Representatives from 47 different species sat in floating chairs arranged in perfect circles around a central platform. Each species had earned their place through centuries of proving their worth to the council. High Counselor Thane rose from the center of the room, their crystalline body catching the strange light and throwing rainbows across the walls. When they spoke, their voice came through translation devices that made their words sound like music. The human delegation has requested autonomy in military matters, Thane announced, and the chamber filled with sounds that the translation devices could not convert. Riley suspected most of the aliens were laughing. Counselor Vash of the Helion Collective leaned forward, their entire body pulsing with soft blue light. The child species wishes to play at war? How amusing. We have studied their conflicts through their own historical records, such primitive methods, such waste. Another representative, whose name Riley could not pronounce, added their thoughts. They fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Their largest weapons destroy single cities. Our defensive systems could stop their entire nuclear arsenal without effort. Riley kept her face calm, though inside she was taking careful notes of everything being said. The council members spoke freely, assuming that humanity was too primitive to understand the true nature of galactic warfare. They had no idea that every word was being recorded and analyzed by human intelligence services. Your species has potential, Thane continued, their tone becoming almost parental. But you must understand your place. Warfare in the galaxy is not the crude business you practiced on your home world. It requires technology you do not possess, strategies you cannot comprehend, and resources beyond your current capabilities. The Altari delegate added their opinion with a sound like breaking glass. They have barely achieved faster than light travel. Their ships are slow, their weapons are weak, and their tactical thinking is limited to planetary conflicts. What could they possibly contribute to galactic security? Riley had been preparing for this moment for months. She knew exactly what the council thought of humanity, and she had practiced her response until it sounded perfectly sincere. Honored counselors, humanity recognizes our limitations. We are grateful for the wisdom and protection the council provides. Then you accept assignment to auxiliary roles? Thane asked. Supply line management, agricultural support for military worlds, basic construction projects. These tasks are better suited to your current abilities. Of course, Riley replied with a bow. Humanity is eager to contribute in whatever way the council sees fit. We have much to learn from the more advanced species. The chamber filled with approving sounds. Several council members expressed satisfaction with humanity's humble acceptance of their proper place. Riley noticed how they relaxed, how they stopped paying careful attention to her words once she had agreed to serve in a minor role. Over the following weeks, Riley attended dozens more meetings. In each one, the pattern was the same. The council would assign humanity another support role, and the human representatives would accept gratefully. Mining operations in distant asteroid fields, construction work on frontier worlds, food production for garrison planets in remote systems. The council members barely noticed as humanity spread throughout their empire. Human workers appeared on worlds across dozens of star systems, always in support roles, always in places the council considered unimportant. Asteroid mining facilities, agricultural worlds, supply depots, communication relay stations. Everywhere the council did not want to waste their own people, they sent humans instead. Riley found herself assigned to oversee many of these operations. She traveled constantly, visiting human work crews scattered across the galaxy. To the council, she appeared to be nothing more than an administrator, making sure the primitive humans were doing their jobs properly. But during these visits, Riley was actually coordinating something much more complex. In each system, human workers were quietly mapping defensive installations, recording patrol schedules, and identifying strategic weaknesses. Every supply run became a reconnaissance mission. Every construction project became an opportunity to study council technology. The council had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They assumed that because humans were new to space travel, they were inferior in all areas. They never considered that a species might be primitive in some ways while being highly advanced in others. Human workers in the asteroid fields were not just mining ore. They were building hidden shipyards in the shadows of dead worlds. Agricultural specialists were not just growing food. They were creating supply networks that could support massive military operations. Construction crews were not just building bases. They were establishing staging areas for future campaigns. The most important discovery came from the communication relay stations. Humans assigned to maintain these facilities gradually gained access to the entire council communication network. Every military message, every fleet movement order, every strategic plan passed through systems that humans now help to operate. After 2 years of playing their assigned role, Riley sat in her private quarters on a transport ship traveling between systems. Her official mission was to inspect food production facilities, but her real purpose was to coordinate the final stages of preparation. In a few hours, she would send a simple message to Earth. 3 words that would change everything. She looked out the viewport at the stars, thinking about how completely the council had underestimated her species. They saw humans as primitive because they fought wars differently. They assumed that advanced technology automatically meant superior strategic thinking. They never realized that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one who appeared weakest. The council would learn their mistake soon enough. Humanity had spent 2 years accepting every insult, every dismissal, every assignment to unimportant roles. But they had also spent those 2 years preparing for something the council had forgotten how to do. Total war. The mining facility on asteroid belt Gamma 7 looked exactly like what the Galactic Council expected to see. Huge machines carved chunks of valuable metal from floating rocks, while human workers operated the equipment with steady efficiency. The monthly reports showed consistent production numbers that satisfied the council overseers, who rarely bothered to visit in person. But beneath the surface mining operations, something else entirely was taking shape. Hidden tunnels led to vast underground chambers where the real work was happening. General Brooks walked through these secret spaces, watching as human engineers assembled weapons and ships using technology that officially did not exist. Status. Report, Brooks said to Colonel Ward, who was reviewing holographic displays that showed the positions of every council fleet within 100 light years. All colonial positions are secured, Ward replied. We have people in 43 star systems now, all in roles the council considers beneath their notice. Agricultural worlds, mining operations, supply depots, and communication stations. They put us exactly where we wanted to be. Brooks nodded, studying the tactical information. The irony was perfect. The Council had assigned humans to every boring, dangerous, or remote job in their empire. They never realized they were giving humans access to every critical system and strategic location. Dr. Kim approached from the weapons development section, carrying a tablet loaded with technical specifications. "The new arsenal is ready for testing, General. We have taken everything we learned from Council technology and made some improvements." "Show me," Brooks said. Kim activated a holographic display that showed sleek Council warships alongside bulkier human designs. "The Council builds elegant solutions. Their ships are fast, efficient, and precise. Perfect for the kind of limited conflicts they have been fighting for centuries." The display shifted to show weapon comparisons. Council energy weapons were precise and powerful, designed to disable enemy ships without destroying valuable technology. Their tactical doctrine emphasized capture and control rather than destruction. "We took a different approach," Kim continued. "Where they install one perfect weapon system, we install 12 redundant ones. Where they optimize for efficiency, we optimize for overwhelming force. Their ships are beautiful. Ours are designed to win wars." Brooks examined the specifications with growing satisfaction. Human ships were indeed less elegant than Council designs, but they carried 3 times as many weapons and twice the armor. More importantly, they were designed by people who understood that war was not a gentleman's sport. "The Council designs for peace," Brooks observed. "They have been so dominant for so long that they forgot how to fight desperate enemies." Ward joined the conversation, pointing to another display that showed production numbers. "The hidden shipyards are operating at maximum capacity. We have construction facilities in the outer systems of 12 different star clusters, all disguised as mining or agricultural operations." The scale of human preparation was staggering. While the Council saw scattered work crews performing simple tasks, humanity had actually deployed the largest military buildup in galactic history. Every asteroid field had become a weapons factory. Every agricultural world was growing supplies for armies. Every remote outpost was actually a strategic staging area. "Communications security?" Brooks asked. "Perfect," Ward replied. "The Council gave us access to their relay network for coordination of work assignments. They have no idea we have been using it to coordinate military operations across dozens of star systems." Dr. Kim pulled up another display showing human technical developments. "The Council shared some of their basic technology with us, expecting we would need decades to understand it. They were right about needing time to understand it, but wrong about what we planned to do with it. Human engineers had indeed taken years to fully comprehend Council technology, but they had used that understanding in ways the aliens never imagined. Where the Council used advanced materials to make ships lighter and more efficient, humans used them to make ships stronger and more heavily armed. Where the Council used superior engines for speed and maneuverability, humans used them to move massive fleets quickly across interstellar distances. "The beauty of their arrogance," Brooks said, "is that they told us exactly what they thought of our capabilities. Every dismissive comment, every assumption about our limitations, every expression of superiority gave us information about how they would react to threats." Ward activated a new display showing Council fleet positions and patrol patterns. "They have not changed their defensive strategies in over a century. Why would they? No one has challenged them successfully in 3,000 years. They assume their technology makes them invincible." "But technology is only part of warfare," Brooks replied, "and not even the most important part." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth. President Martinez appeared on the communication screen, her expression serious. "General Brooks, the Council just denied our latest request for military autonomy. They also made it clear they consider humanity permanently unsuited for anything beyond support roles." Brooks exchanged glances with her staff. They had been hoping the Council might eventually recognize human potential and offer true partnership. That possibility was now officially closed. I see, Madam President. What are your orders? Begin final preparations. If the Council wants to see what human warfare looks like, we will give them a demonstration they will never forget. After the communication ended, Brooks stood quietly for several minutes. Around her, the secret facility buzzed with activity as human workers continued, building the tools of war. She thought about the path that had led to this moment. Humanity had approached the Galactic Council in good faith, hoping for partnership among equals. But the aliens had seen only primitives to be managed and controlled. They had assumed that technological advancement automatically meant moral and strategic superiority. They were about to learn the difference between being advanced and being experienced. The Council had spent millennia maintaining peace through overwhelming technological advantage. They had forgotten the lessons that humanity had learned through centuries of brutal conflict. War was not about having the best technology. It was about commitment, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to win. The Council fought to maintain control. Humans fought to survive. Colonel Ward, Brooks said finally. Yes, General? Send the activation codes to all units. Operation Prometheus begins in 72 hours. Ward nodded and began transmitting encrypted messages to human facilities across the galaxy. In asteroid fields and on agricultural worlds, in supply depots and communication stations, human workers received their final instructions. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one who had been underestimated, dismissed, and pushed too far. The Galactic Council had wanted servants. Instead, they had created an army. The morning shift at Centauri Communication Hub began like any other day. Technician Adams checked the overnight message logs while his Altari supervisor reviewed system performance reports. The massive station processed thousands of communications every hour, coordinating fleet movements and administrative messages across 12 star systems. Adams worked quietly at his console, running what appeared to be routine maintenance protocols. His supervisor barely glanced at him, having grown accustomed to the reliable human worker over the past 18 months. Like most council members, the Altari considered humans to be useful but unremarkable. At exactly 0800 station time, Adams entered a specific sequence of commands into the communication array. To any observer, it looked like a standard system. Backup procedure. In reality, he was uploading a virus that human programmers had spent 2 years perfecting. The virus moved through the Council's communication network like wildfire, copying itself to every connected system. Within minutes, it had infected relay stations, command centers, and fleet communication arrays across hundreds of light years. But it did not activate immediately. Instead, it waited for a specific signal. That signal came 37 minutes later. Across the galaxy, the Council's entire communication network went silent. Every military message, every coordination protocol, every emergency channel stopped working simultaneously. Fleet commanders found themselves cut off from their superiors. Ground forces lost contact with orbital support. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Galactic Council was blind and deaf. Admiral Caney of the Third Fleet was reviewing patrol schedules when his communication officer reported the network failure. Sir, we have lost contact with command. All channels are dead. Equipment malfunction, Caney replied dismissively. Switch to backup systems. The backups are not responding either, sir. It appears to be a total network collapse. Caney frowned, but he was not immediately concerned. In 3,000 years of peace, the Council had never faced a coordinated attack. The idea that someone might deliberately target their communications was simply outside his experience. That changed when the sensor officer spoke up. Admiral, we have unknown contacts approaching our position. Configuration does not match any known Council vessel. On the main display, 30 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were clearly human in design, but larger and more heavily armed than anything the Council had seen humans build. Human ships? Caney said. his voice filled with confusion. "How did they get past our sensor networks, and what are they doing here?" Commander Hayes opened a communication channel from her flagship. "Council vessel, this is the Human Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender." Caney activated his own communications, incredulous. "Human Commander, you are in violation of Council space. Return to your assigned duties immediately." "I am afraid that will not be possible, Admiral. Humanity is no longer accepting assignments from the Council." The human fleet moved into attack formation with precision that surprised Caney. These were not the clumsy support vessels he had expected. These ships moved like they were designed for war. "This is impossible," Caney broadcast. "Your species does not have the technology or training for military operations of this scale. Stand down immediately." Hayes responded by ordering her weapons to fire. The human attack was unlike anything the Council had encountered, where their own weapons were designed for precision strikes that disabled enemy systems. Human weapons were designed for complete destruction. Magnetically accelerated projectiles moving at tremendous speeds struck Council ships with devastating effect. Nuclear-powered laser arrays cut through advanced armor like paper. Caney watched in horror as his flagship's sister ship, a kilometer-long masterpiece of Altari engineering, cracked along its entire length and exploded in a brilliant flash. The destruction was so complete that nothing remained but glowing particles. "All ships, return fire," Caney ordered. The Council ships responded with their own weapons, precise energy beams that should have disabled the human vessels. But the human ships kept fighting. Where a Council ship might have one primary weapon system, the human ships had dozens of redundant systems. Destroying one weapon array barely affected their combat capability. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "their armor is absorbing most of our weapon impacts, and they have some kind of backup system for everything. We destroy one weapon, and two more keep firing." The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. The entire Third Fleet, 12 of the Council's most advanced warships, was either destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost only 2 ships, and both of those were still capable of fighting. "This cannot be happening," Caney transmitted, on all frequencies, as his ship lost power and began drifting. "Your species was assigned to agricultural support. You do not have military capability," Hayes replied with what sounded like amusement in her voice. "Admiral, you made 2 serious mistakes. First, you assumed that because we were new to your technology, we could not improve upon it. Second, you forgot that humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We know how to build weapons that win battles." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human fleets struck at targets throughout Council space. Every attack followed the same pattern. Human forces appeared without warning, destroyed or disabled Council military assets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The attacks were perfectly coordinated despite the communication blackout. Human commanders knew exactly where to find their targets and how to avoid Council defenses. 2 years of working in support roles had given them complete intelligence about Council military operations. At the Kepler Defense Station, Lieutenant Governor Vesh watched helplessly as human ships systematically destroyed the orbital weapons, platforms that protected 3 star systems. The platforms had been designed to stop invasion fleets, but they could not track the fast-moving human vessels that attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. "Send a distress signal," Vesh ordered. "Sir, the communication network is still down. We cannot contact anyone." Vesh realized with growing terror that the communication failure was not an accident. It was part of a coordinated attack that had been planned with military precision. The humans had not simply rebelled. They had declared war. On dozens of worlds, Council garrison commanders found themselves facing impossible situations. Human forces seemed to know exactly where every military installation was located and how it was defended. Supply depots exploded, weapons factories went silent, and defensive systems failed one after another. The most shocking aspect of the human offensive was its scope. Council intelligence had estimated that humanity possessed perhaps 50 military vessels. But human fleets were attacking targets in over 30 star systems simultaneously, suggesting a military capability far beyond what anyone had imagined. By the end of the first day, the Council's military structure in the outer systems had been effectively destroyed. Not conquered or occupied, but simply eliminated. Human forces did not attempt to hold territory. They struck, destroyed everything of military value, and disappeared. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer interested in serving as the Council's junior partner. They had demonstrated that they possessed both the capability and the will to fight a real war. The Galactic Council, masters of the galaxy for 3 millennia, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they did not understand, using tactics they had never encountered. For the first time in their ancient history, they were afraid. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were rare events, reserved for natural disasters or the discovery of new hostile species. In 3,000 years, they had never convened one because of a rebellion. The crystal chamber that usually hummed with calm authority now buzzed with panic and confusion. High Counselor Thane stood at the center of the room, their crystalline body flickering with stress patterns that all the other species recognized. Around them, representatives from 47 different worlds struggled to understand reports that seemed impossible. 60% of our outer defense networks have been destroyed, Thane announced. Our 3rd, 7th, and 15th fleets have been completely eliminated. Our communication systems are still compromised. And all of this has been accomplished by a species we classified as primitives. Counselor Vash pulsed with angry red light. Our intelligence reports showed that humanity had perhaps 50 small vessels suitable for basic transport. How are they engaging our forces in 30 different star systems simultaneously? The Corval representative changed colors rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Their ships are using technology we do not recognize. Our sensors indicate they have developed propulsion systems that are completely different from our own designs. Admiral Caney, recently rescued from his disabled flagship, had been brought before the Council to provide a first-hand account. His usual composure was gone, replaced by something the Council members rarely saw in their military commanders: genuine fear. Honored Counselors, Caney began, I must report that our assumptions about human capabilities were completely wrong. Their ships are not primitive. They are designed by people who understand warfare in ways we had forgotten. Explain, Thane commanded. Caney activated a holographic display showing the human vessels he had encountered. Look at their design philosophy. Where we build ships that are elegant and efficient, they build ships that can absorb tremendous damage and keep fighting. Where we install one perfect weapon system, they install dozens of different weapons. The display showed the comparative firepower. A typical Council ship carried advanced weapons designed for precise strikes. The human ships carried weapons designed for overwhelming destruction. More importantly, they carried so many redundant systems that destroying individual components had little effect on their combat capability. But the technology, Vash insisted. They cannot have developed such capabilities independently. They have been part of our civilization for only 3 years. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Stone had been captured when his ship suffered critical damage during a raid on the Vega supply depot. Unlike other prisoners who usually cooperated with Council interrogators, Stone seemed almost amused by his situation. You want to understand our capabilities? Stone said, laughing at the assembled Council members. It is simple. While you were teaching us to run supply missions and grow food, we were learning your entire empire. Every weakness, every defensive gap, every strategic vulnerability. Thane leaned forward, their crystalline form focusing intently. Explain. You put us everywhere you did not want to be, Stone continued. Every dangerous mining operation, every boring supply run, every remote Communication station. You gave us access to your entire infrastructure and never bothered to monitor what we were actually doing with that access. The implications slowly dawned on the council members. For 2 years, humans had been working throughout their empire in positions the aliens considered beneath their notice. But those positions had given humans complete knowledge of council defensive systems, supply lines, and strategic resources. The asteroid mining operations, Stone continued, were actually shipyards building our fleet. The agricultural worlds were producing supplies for military campaigns. The communication stations gave us access to your entire command structure. You did not give us servants' jobs. You gave us a complete map of everything we needed to conquer you. Counselor Vash's bioluminescence dimmed to almost nothing. This is impossible. Our security protocols were designed to prevent infiltration by advanced species, Stone interrupted. You never considered that a supposedly primitive species might be conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. You saw what you expected to see, and you never looked deeper. Admiral Caney added his own observations. During our engagement, their commander knew our patrol schedules, our weapon capabilities, and our tactical doctrine. They fought us like they had been studying our methods for years. Because we had been, Stone confirmed. Every council military manual, every strategic assessment, every tactical analysis passes through communication systems that humans help to maintain. We know your empire better than you do. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of human deception became clear. For 3 years, the council had believed they were managing a primitive species that needed guidance and protection. In reality, they had been providing that species with complete access to their most sensitive information, but the worst revelation was yet to come. This fleet you encountered, Thane said to Admiral Caney, this represents their full military capability? Stone smiled. Actually, no. What you have been fighting is just our advance force. The ships you destroyed represent about 15% of our total military production. The color drained from every council member capable of changing color. Several representatives began making distress calls to their home worlds. You see, Stone continued conversationally, humans have been at war with each other for our entire recorded history. We know how to build for total conflict, not limited engagement. While you spent centuries perfecting elegant solutions for maintaining peace, we spent centuries learning how to destroy everything an enemy values. He gestured at the displays showing council fleet positions. Your ships are designed to win the kind of wars you have been fighting for the last 1,000 years. Limited conflicts between species with similar technology levels, where the goal is to establish dominance without excessive destruction. Our ships are designed for a different kind of war. The kind where you eliminate your enemy's ability to fight back permanently. Vash managed to speak through their distress. What do you want? What are your terms? Stone considered the question. That is not my decision to make, but I can tell you what humanity no longer wants. We no longer want to be treated as servants. We no longer want to accept assignments based on your assessment of our limitations. And we no longer want to pretend that we are grateful for the privilege of membership in your empire. Thane's form flickered rapidly. And if we refuse to renegotiate your status, then you will discover exactly how much military capability we actually possess, Stone replied calmly. What you have seen so far is just our way of getting your attention. The real human war machine is still mobilizing. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions as representatives tried to contact their home governments. The communications were difficult because the human virus was still disrupting large portions of their network, but gradually the scope of the crisis became clear. Humanity had not simply rebelled. They had demonstrated that they possessed the capability to destroy the Council's military forces throughout the galaxy. More terrifying still, they apparently had reserves that dwarfed what they had already deployed. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that might actually be able to defeat them. And that enemy was a species they had dismissed as primitive just months before. The age of council dominance was ending, and none of them had seen it coming. The treaty signing ceremony took place in the same crystal chamber where humanity had once begged for military autonomy, but everything else had changed. The walls now bore scorch marks from recent battles, and several of the floating seats remained empty. Their former occupants had not been killed, but their governments had already negotiated separate peace agreements with humanity rather than risk total destruction. Ambassador Riley entered the chamber with a delegation of human officials, but this time she walked as an equal rather than a supplicant. The alien representatives who had once dismissed her with casual arrogance now watched her every movement with careful attention. High Counselor Thane had lost much of their earlier magnificence. Stress patterns ran through their crystalline body, like fractures, and their usual melodic voice now carried undertones of exhaustion. Around the chamber, other council members showed similar signs of the strain they had endured over the past 6 months. "The proposed treaty has been reviewed by all remaining council members," Thane announced. "The terms are acceptable." Riley nodded politely. "President Martinez will be pleased to establish formal relations between our peoples as equals." The key word equals hung in the air like a challenge. 6 months earlier, the council had considered humans to be useful servants at best. Now they were negotiating with them as military and political equals because they had learned that the alternative was annihilation. Counselor Vash, their bioluminescent patches dim with defeat, spoke carefully. "The territorial concessions you requested, they represent significant strategic resources." "Yes, they do," Riley agreed. "Humanity requires those resources to establish our own sphere of influence. We can no longer accept a situation where our development is limited by council oversight." The territorial concessions were indeed substantial. Humanity had claimed direct control over 15 star systems, including some of the richest mining areas in council space. But the aliens had agreed because they understood the alternative. Human military forces had demonstrated they could take those systems by force if necessary. Admiral Caney, recently promoted to Council Military Coordinator, presented the military aspects of the treaty. His promotion had come partly because he was one of the few high-ranking officers who had survived direct combat with human forces. "The non-aggression clauses are clearly defined," Caney said, trying to maintain professional dignity. "Human forces will cease offensive operations against Council targets. In return, the Council recognizes human autonomy in all military matters." Riley reviewed the documents with satisfaction. The treaty gave humanity everything they had originally requested, plus significant additional concessions. More importantly, it established the principle that humans would never again accept subordinate status in galactic affairs. "There is one additional matter," Riley said. "The reparations for the 3 years during which humanity was forced into servitude." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The reparations were substantial, including technology transfers, raw materials, and territorial concessions. But they had agreed because human negotiators had made it clear that these were the terms for peace. Thane's form flickered with barely contained emotion. "The compensation has been approved by all council governments." "Excellent," Riley replied. "Then we can proceed with the formal signing." As the various representatives added their signatures and seals to the treaty documents, Counselor Vash asked the question that had been troubling all of them. "Was this always your plan? From the moment you joined the council, were you preparing for war?" Riley considered her answer carefully. "Initially, no. Humanity genuinely hoped for partnership and mutual cooperation. We believed that joining the EIE Council would benefit both our species and yours." "Then what changed?" Thane asked. "You did," Riley replied simply. "When it became clear that you saw us only as servants to be managed and controlled, we adapted our approach. That is what humans do. We adapt to changing circumstances." Admiral Caney spoke up, his voice still carrying traces of the shock he had experienced during his first encounter with human military forces. Your warfare methods, they are so different from ours, so thorough. How does your species live with such capacity for violence? Riley thought about the question for several moments. The same way we have always lived with it. We remember that violence is a tool, not a way of life. We use it when necessary to protect what we value, and we put it away when the threat has passed. But your ships, your weapons, they are designed for total destruction rather than tactical victory, Vash observed. Because we learned something from our own history that you apparently forgot during your centuries of peace, Riley explained. Sometimes the only way to achieve lasting peace is to demonstrate to potential enemies that the cost of conflict will be higher than they are willing to pay. She gestured at the treaty documents they had just signed. You spent 3,000 years believing that superior technology made you invincible. You thought that being advanced meant being superior in all things. You never considered that a species might be primitive in some areas while being highly developed in others. Thane asked the question that had been haunting them all. What if we had treated you as equals from the beginning? What if we had offered true partnership instead of subordinate membership? Riley smiled, and for a moment her expression showed genuine warmth rather than diplomatic politeness. Then we would probably be allies today instead of former enemies, who have agreed not to fight each other. The signing ceremony concluded with formal statements from all parties. The treaty would be transmitted to every world in both human and council space, announcing the new relationship between the two civilizations. As the various delegations prepared to leave, Admiral Caney approached Riley privately. I must ask, the military forces you deployed against us, was that really only 15% of your total capability? Actually, Riley replied, it was closer to 12%, and those were not even our best ships. Caney stared at her in shock. The human forces he had fought had seemed overwhelming, capable of destroying council fleets with ease. The idea that they represented only a small fraction of human military capability was terrifying. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because I want you to understand something important, Riley said. This treaty is not just a political agreement, it is also a promise. As long as the Council honors these terms and treats humanity as equals, you will never see what our real military looks like. Riley left the chamber knowing that the galaxy had changed forever. The Council's 3,000-year dominance was over. Not because they had been conquered, but because they had finally encountered a species that refused to be dominated. Humanity had earned their place among the stars the only way they knew how, through strength, determination, and an absolute refusal to accept anything less than the respect they deserved. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. In the years that followed, the Human Council Treaty would be studied as a masterpiece of strategic planning and diplomatic negotiation. But the real lesson was simpler. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who appears weakest.